It's very simple. I want you to avoid getting scammed in New World's expansion, and I'm going to tell you why and how to avoid it. Now, it's not like a real scam, it's an in-game scam. It's the faction vendor. So let me jump into New World database because the PTR has ended, I can't show you in game, and then we'll talk about why it is what it is and will they change it. Now this one is very simple, right? So it looks like you can buy a package of specialized mining materials. There's one for each profession, and you know, you can get it one every 23 hours, basically one every day. And it's 50,000 tokens and 5,000 gold. Now, at the start of the game, you might think, or at the start of the expansion, you might think that that actually makes sense. Because, hey, I need that mithril. Mithril's going to be in very short supply. Therefore, if I can sort of shortcut it and get it, well, not for free, but with minimal effort, then that will be very good. And that, my friends, is where this scam starts. At the minute, what you actually get in this one that you can buy is nothing of the sort. There is cinnabar in it, which you can sort of just see at the bottom, and there is Tolvium. There is no mithril. You don't get any. And somebody, a legend called Sonics, bought one on the PTR, and lo and behold, they literally got what it said: cinnabar, Tolvium, and, you know, some weapon perks, crafting perks, that kind of thing. Nothing fancy. Now, the reason that is a scam essentially is because you might think it's the normal package of specialized mining materials, the one that you actually get from actually doing the farming. And in that one, you get all the same kind of things, but you do actually also get mithril ore, as well as the new patterns, the patterns for the gathering clothes and stuff like that. You do not get that in the Scamber one from the store. Now, it's worth noting that might change, but I wouldn't be the first one to buy it. If it does change, I will either let you guys know, or, you know, check it on the PTR or on New World database like we're doing right now. By the way, I'm aware that it looks like I've got two black eyes. On one of them, I'm just tired. On the other, I've got like a spot, and, you know, it looks weird. So yeah, avoid the scamber with this. This applies to all of them. If it changes, I will let you know. However, with the price being what it is, it would have to be insanely valuable to be worth that. To be honest, I'm not sure 10 mithril ore will be worth 5,000 gold. Even if it is the new one, I'm not sure that price makes any kind of sense. But if it doesn't change, then you're paying 5,000 gold and 50,000 tokens for like 100 gold worth of materials. Absolute Amazon scam. And even if it was the new one, probably still a scam. Now, the next one I think simply has to be a mistake. Although saying that, I would have thought that about the first one. Basically, if you don't know right now, in-game at the moment, you can go ahead and buy the replica faction skins. So for example, I actually wear this, right? This Syndicate Plague Doctor mask. I've already bought this, I've already paid for it. I have this in-game, and I paid the 50,000 faction tokens, I paid the 7,500 gold. There's one per slot. Anyway, I paid for it, I use this as a proper normal skin. You can dye it, etc. However, keep a close eye on what this looks like. And in the PTR, at least, and this is why I think this one must be a mistake, or that just something weird is happening, they added this, which effectively is 50,000 faction tokens for 50,000 gold. By the way, faction tokens are just, you know, way easier to get, just in general, than gold. And it's the exact same skin. I mean, there's no difference from what I can tell. There's literally no difference. So, I don't know what's going on there. I don't know if this is maybe like a setup for another skin, and I'm going to show you what that might be, but very much do not buy the more expensive skin if that doesn't change. That could very easily be another little scam. Now, I'm saying scam, I don't think Amazon's necessarily doing this intentionally or anything like that. I think it's simply, this might be an issue where the PTR is not fully updated, but until we know for sure what you're actually getting, I would just hold off a little bit. And I would just be a little bit worried. Like, if you do want this and it's not changed and it's literally the same skin and it's just the price difference, then obviously you should not buy the more expensive one. You are getting ripped off. Okay, so just be aware of that. As I said, it might not go to live, but what I don't want to do, and let's face it, once the first day comes out, I'm not going to be like making a video be like, don't get scammed on the faction store. So I wanted to get this out early so you know not to do it unless it changes. Now, it might be that actually what they're doing here is a placeholder for another skin, and that skin might be this skin. Now, this is the Syndicate specs. Now, as you can see, that looks similar, but significantly different, and quite frankly, significantly better. So maybe there is a whole set that looks like this, and maybe that also applies to the Covenant and the Marauders, because they all have sort of like different skins in general, but I'm just sticking with the Syndicate because that's the one I know best. So maybe they're going to change the skin to that, maybe, and if they do, it would sort of make sense because this is quite expensive on its own. or if you just want the skin, you can just get the skin. That would make some kind of sense. I sort of think they might do that. However, this leads me nicely onto another possible scam when it comes to this. The Syndicate specs, these are basically Arcanist 5+2 when you craft your Arcanist. You might think, oh, that sounds good. And there's one for Covenant where it's actually cooking expertise. And there's one for Weaponsmith where it's 5+ weaponsmithing, right? Now, the reason that this is effectively a scam is, well, one, the price is absolutely insanely high. And two, apart from the cooking one, you don't actually need them. So you can pretty much craft 700 gear score items without this extra +5. Now on the PTR, and I'm not saying that this will be what it goes live because it sort of was broke a little bit on the PTR for a bit. Effectively, you can craft gear score 700 items without having all of the clothing and without having all of the trophies. I think when I was doing armoring, it seemed like when I had everything, it seemed like I had 10 over what I needed it to be, so that could either be like 2 trophies or some of the clothing or a combination of what have you, right? Now that might not hold, you might need everything, but what they're not going to do, because I think it would cause absolute uproar considering it's faction specific, is make it so that if you want to be an Arcanist, you pretty much have to be a Syndicate and you have to pay for this. So this +5 means that it's basically just a way of getting you an alternative to what already exists in the game. However, the stuff that already exists in the game is pretty much cheaper than this and you don't need it. Okay, it's as simple as that. You literally just do not need it. You'd be better just getting the normal stuff and then just crafting it with gear score like 700 the normal way. You could argue that if you were trying to craft without the trophies and stuff, that there might be some value there, but I really strongly, very strongly doubt it. And the Marauder one for weaponsmithing is sort of the same stuff. However, I think some of the weaponsmithing items might be a little bit more expensive, so might make sense to pay the 65,000 gold. I doubt it. I really doubt it. Again, I think this one's a scam. The only one that's not really a scam is effectively the cooking, because this is 5% more than what you can get anywhere else. If you have everything when it comes to a percentage, then you're going to have a higher percentage. So if you are like an insane chef and you cook an absolute shed ton all the time, then actually this sort of makes a little bit of sense. The normal chef shirt, it's not easy for me to say, is actually +4. So now you can get an extra 6%. I mean, I'm not sure it's worth it, and it's also worth noting that you literally have to be Covenant to get this one. I feel like this one's a little bit dodgier because everybody could sort of use that one. I'm not saying it's cost effective, but there's actually a reason to have that one over, say, the other two. But you literally have to be Covenant to get it. And I don't think that's very good design, necessarily. Maybe they're testing the water with this kind of system, but I don't think people want to be like changing factions and feeling like they're missing out because they're just not the right faction. Again, though, is 6% worth 65,000? Like, you would have to farm an absolute insane amount, and you'd have to craft an insane amount for that to be worth it. But maybe that's you. Maybe you are that 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 player who actually makes like sense, and this actually should be something you pick up. I really doubt it though. And now what I think is probably another scam, and that is the mastery item. So weirdly, they've not changed the text on this. You see how it says salvage to gain a lot of mining experience? That's not how it works. You actually salvage it and it gives you the unusual ore. They changed this from being just raw XP to being the ores, and they did it for every tier. Now basically they're adding another tier, so you might already be familiar with these. At this point it's worth noting that you can only use 3 ores per day. By the way, there's one for logging, fishing, etc. There's one for all of the gathering. Now the reason it's a little bit of a scam is for unusual ores, it's just not worth the price. The one thing that it has is it has a good faction token to unusual ore ratio, but it has a really bad gold to unusual ore ratio. So just have a look, for 5,000 gold, you get 4 unusual ores. However, if you were picking up the purple ones now, you would get 1 unusual ore for 100 gold, which would basically be 400 gold for 4, except it would cost you 16,000 tokens. Now, I don't know about you, but I'd rather save the 4,600 gold and spend maybe 6,000 more tokens to get my quantities of unusual ores. Simple as that, basically. So for me, gold is more valuable than the faction tokens, but I think this is just a scamber. No need to get this one. Get the purple ones right now. As we said, it's also worth noting that you can only use 3 per day. And honestly, apparently 3 of the blue unusual ores or resins and all that kind of stuff will actually take you from mining 200 to mining 207 or something like that. You only need to get 205 to get the new materials. So I really don't think there's much point stacking these. Sure, you can try and stack them for aptitude and stuff like that, but I don't think it's worth spending the gold for the aptitude. I think you might as well just go out and like farm. It's really not worth it in my opinion, unless you're like super duper mega rich, maybe like a PvP warlord or something. For me, another scamber. Now there are some things that aren't full on scams that actually might be worth it. Now it's a little bit hard to say because we haven't quite done the progression of the expansion naturally. We were told that if you do the MSQ, you will end up being about 650 gear score. And there's two types of gear in the faction vendor. Now in, weeks time, months time, nobody will be using the faction vendor stuff, I don't think. But in the leveling up process, there might be a reason to do so. Now, this is just the Covenant one, but there's all different variants. Generally, they have health and refreshing on it, which are going to be two very useful perks. Looks like the devs are aware of that, so they're giving it you. And the cost for this isn't really that bad. It's 12,000 tokens, sure, 12.5. And it's 3,750 for this piece, but you can use it at level 62. So you know what, you could be gear score 650 at level 62 if you've got a lot of faction stuff saved up. It's not a full-on scam. It might definitely be worth. Now, if you're getting gear very easily, and I think the PTR was sort of bugged, so I think we're getting gear a little bit too easily. But if we are getting it easily, then there'll be no need to do this. However, I think this might be decent sort of leveling gear. Now, it's worth noting that you probably are going to be 625 gear score anyway. So is it worth paying this for the 650 gear score? Do you know what? I don't know. But it's also worth noting that if you have gear score 650, you are pretty much primed and ready, I believe, for an M1. Is what they said. So, it's worth considering. And then there's like a step up from that at gear score 675, which is effectively the similar kind of thing, right? So, I mean, I'm looking at the light variant, but it doesn't really matter. Health, refreshing, and enchanted ward. Do you know what? These are three very, very, very good perks. But, it makes sense. This is good stuff. Now, the price is a little bit like not that bad either. It's 4,500 gold, 15,000 tokens. Do you know what? If you've literally just hit 64 or level 65, I mean, it requires 64, this might be like worth gear picking up. You'll be ready, I think, at this point with a full set of this for an M2. And the fact that you can pretty much save up your tokens and your gold now sort of means that this isn't a full-on scamber. Now, if you're getting really easy gear from other sources, then it might be. It's very hard to know right now, but this is definitely something that I'm looking at picking up. As I get my named items, I might be using this to farm them. So I might hit 65, go around the bosses looking for named items. Once I get them, I'll upgrade them using the matrices and stuff like that. But in the meantime, I might literally just have a full set of this. I don't think it's that bad. It's also worth noting, not really overly relevant to this video necessarily, but the patterns that we're going to get from the Halloween event, the legendary versions are going to drop at 675. I think that's sort of the pattern we're going to start seeing. And I think this will effectively be like catch-up gear, if that's what you want, because I doubt that the materials are very, very expensive. In fact, I sort of already checked this out before, and it's using the old stuff, not the new stuff. So in a couple of weeks time, like after the expansion drops, for some of the old gear or some of the old materials, you're going to be able to get gear score 675 stuff. So that'll be like decent catch-up gear, I think. Nothing crazy there. However, I flat out don't see the point of the green patterns after the expansion goes live, because you're never going to hit like gear score 700 unless they are changing that somehow. Just something I wanted to add. So yeah, don't get Amazon scammed. The attitude boxes look like a scam. The skins look like a scam. The gathering XP looks like a scam. The crafting items mostly look like a scam, apart from maybe the cooking one. But even if the cooking one's not a scam, then it's weird that that's in the game. And yeah, I think a lot of people might come in, and if they don't change this, you might think, oh, I'll get some materials from this attitude box. Oh, that skin looks cool, I'll buy it. And honestly, you'll just be throwing away your gold. Now, it might be that they change it. Obviously, if they change it, then all bets are off. But that's the way that it was in the PTR. If that's the way it is when it goes live, then yeah, be very cautious. Some of the gear, I think, might actually have a place, especially whilst you're leveling up, or like when you're early level 65. If you're not one of these people who's going to be like crafting, using the chromatic seal day one, or maybe even the Azoth inductor day one, then I think some of the faction vendor stuff will be pretty decent gear to just roam around in, do the elite chest runs and stuff like that. I think it's actually pretty sensible gear. You can even do like an M2 in the 675 gear, so I think that's reasonable. For the rest, yeah, very, very questionable. One little note, by the way, if you are going to be interested in crafting, I would buy your Azoth inductor the first week, even if you have to like sort of push to do it, because you can only buy one per week, so make sure you're sort of stocking up if that's something you want to do. Big shout out to my Patreons. I do really appreciate you guys. If you want to support the channel, that is the best way. I simply get the most amount of money if you do that. So I appreciate you guys. I also appreciate the YouTube members who are still sort of clinging around. Much love, appreciate you guys as well. If you want to come follow me, then I stream pretty much 6 days a week over on Twitch, apart from Saturday, and actually apart from this Tuesday, because I'm taking the little one to the zoo before we absolutely hardcore hammer this expansion. What you should definitely do though is have a most beautiful day. Like and subscribe. Goodbye.